Jamie, you had a question from Tim from the Nerd Room podcast.
Tim's question from the Nerd Room podcast. He was asking how, I mean, this kind of builds upon kind of the discussion we were having earlier, is how modern toy companies are balancing their kind of like their children versus the collector toy and merchandise portfolios. Like, what if you had to put a number on it or like ballpark it, what would you say that percentage split is of where they're emphasizing the business? So for example, he listed companies like NECA or McFarlane, who are much closer or seem to be closer to the collector adult focused, and kind of, are those companies successful?
So, okay, the best way to put it is the adult collector market is absolutely a significant dollar share. Like, it's worth going after, if you will. You know, it represents several $100,000 worth of annual business. What it is so it's basically, it's enough to support it. There's enough of demand out there to support small companies like NECA and Sideshow and McFarlane. I mean, McFarlane's probably the biggest of the small companies, but it's still a small privately held company that has very low overhead. So, again, going back to my point earlier about how no financial analyst would ever put a company like NECA and Mattel in the same bucket, even though they're both toy makers. So for the larger companies like your Hasbro or Mattel, the black and white is that it's only worth it to go after the collector market when there is a sort of secondary substantial gain beyond the monetary sales. I know I sound like such a marketing professor. So basically the revenue, the carrot that they're chasing, it's not worth kind of the time and energy if you're only for a big company, because of their enormous amount of overhead they have. They have these giant buildings and healthcare benefits and, all this stuff, that they pay for that smaller companies don't have. But if there's a large secondary gain, such as supporting an IP, like a perfect example is Hot Wheels Redline Club, which is like the Hot Wheels Collector Club. Kind of like we had Matty Collector was the action figure club. Redline Hot Wheels Collector they've been having like sort of a car of the month line for years. And while that line may not be, obviously they, cover their costs, but it's not moving the stock needle. But what it is doing is it's maintaining fan interest in a brand that, in this case, Mattel, has a huge sort of equity. Hot Wheels is a $1 billion worldwide brand. So it's worth it to run a collector line because it's basically marketing for the brand in total, if you will. So then if you switch to something like Silverhawks, no company has any equity in Silverhawks. It doesn't mean anything to a company. But Super 7 can pick it up and put out 6-inch Ultimate figures, and it works because they're a very small company, but you wouldn't see a Mattel or Hasbro pick that up because there's no secondary gain, if you will. That's just like picking up a random old property from the 80s. Does that kind of make sense? I hope I'm not.
Yeah, it completely makes sense for me. So I think one of the numbers you used in past videos, you talk about the 80% being 80% is for the kids, the 20% is for the collectors. If I got that right, is that about the number that's used?
That's not for like a Mattel or Hasbro in total. If you were going to look at like a Mattel or Hasbro in total, collectors represent less than 1% of sales.
Oh, wow.
What I'm talking about is a line that we feel like a mass market line that we as adults tend to think of as made for us, like Black Series, like Marvel Legends, like Cobra Classified or G.I. Joe Classified. And those lines do appeal to us, and we're considered 20% of the consumer base for a line like Black Series. And then 80% of the customers who buy Black Series, believe it or not, are kids. I know it doesn't feel that way. The proof is that a brand that doesn't appeal to kids can't sell enough units to justify the space in a major retail aisle. That's why Target in the US has an area behind electronics where they sell, more collector specific product that wouldn't appeal to kids.